As time has expired, the chair recognizes the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Velázquez. You're recognized.
Thank you,
5
Mr.
minutes.
Chairman, and thank you for joining us today, Mr. Secretary. I want to focus on renewable energy, the fastest growing sector in our energy economy, and a key solution for cleaner, more reliable power that doesn't poison our air or overheat the planet. That is why it's alarming that the fiscal year budget 26 completely zeroes out funding for renewable energy programs at the Bureau of Land Management and Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. The BLM Renewable Energy Management Program is the very office responsible for siting and permitting solar and wind projects on public lands. No funding means no investment in a cleaner environment. And the justification, the budget in brief calls clean energy a green new scam and claims these technologies are too unreliable for Americans, despite the fact that wind and solar are affordable and the fastest growing sources of electricity in the US. So my question to you is offshore wind considered a legitimate part of the American energy dominance agenda?
It is not.
It's not. So is it being left behind in favor of fossil fuels?
It's not about any particular source. It's about the fact that and you talked about affordable, but the fact is that offshore wind is the most expensive all-in of any of the sources we have.
Thank you for confirming that it's not. That there is no legitimate plan to support offshore wind projects, but rather undermine ongoing projects, which I can talk about further in a few minutes. Moving on to my second question. As energy czar, you should be able to talk about all forms of energy. Can you provide an example of a currently operating offshore wind project and tell us about its impact in numbers, jobs created, homes powered?
The issue with offshore wind or onshore wind is that when the wind isn't blowing, we also need everything we had before. We need all the base load before. So any estimate that says that wind is cheaper would only be true if we were willing to only
reclaiming my time. I asked you about any specific project that is going on that you are aware of, but you're not mentioning any. So let me tell you why offshore wind works, not in theory, but in practice. South Fork Wind, New York's first offshore wind farm, generates 132 megawatts of clean energy, powering 70,000 homes on Long Island, created nearly 1,000 jobs, creating new businesses and supporting training programs. My constituents are willing to pay $1 for clean electricity, job benefits, and protecting our climate, because climate change is an existential threat to my constituents and to our country and the world. Mr. Secretary, while families in New York and across the country are dealing with extreme weather, flooding, rising seas, deadly hurricanes, your department issued a stop work order on a fully permitted offshore wind project just off the coast of my home state, Empire Wind. Just this week, I heard from a local small business that lost a contract due to offshore wind delays. Real jobs and real livelihoods are on the line. Let me be clear, my constituents do not want more offshore oil rigs and Deepwater Horizon-style disaster. They want offshore wind and the good-paying union jobs that come with it. Sunset Park, which is it was part of my district for 3 decades, until recently, is home to the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal, which will serve as a staging and assembly site for offshore wind. The port will support 1,000 union construction jobs and 200 assembly jobs. I do not understand why we cannot have it all.
The highest electric rates in the country outside of Hawaii are in New England, and it has to do with the policies. And I think that energy freedom, we're heading towards energy poverty if we keep choosing things. You mentioned 70,000 homes getting electricity. The 70,000 homes only have that when the wind is blowing. They also need all the fossil fuels, all of the base load, all of everything else to power those homes when the wind's not blowing. So we need two systems, not one. That's why it's
In
expensive.
conclusion, we have an administration that doesn't care about the health of
Gentlelady's
our communities.
time has
As
expired.
big companies pollute our land, air, and ocean. I
Gentlelady's
yield
time
back.
expired.
We do care about health. I'm sorry, there's over 2 million people die a year in the world because they don't have access to electricity. And any place where there's more electricity, humanity flourishes and health increases. The biggest increase in health lifespans we had in the United States was in the North Slope of Alaska after we had the economic development of being able to develop in that area. So it's just incorrect to say we don't care about health.
I ask your unanimous consent to submit to the record a study showing that in 2024, China began construction on 94.5 gigawatts of new coal-fired power plants. That's the highest level since 2015, without objection. So ordered. Also ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article from April 20th, 2024 from Reuters reporting that once again China missed its air quality goals. And to follow up with that, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article from E+E Leader titled Air Quality Worsens Despite China's Renewable Energy Boom. This article reveals that despite gains in clean energy, air pollution metrics indicate a troubling trend. As of March 2025, 11 of 31 provincial capitals exceeded the national PM 2.5 annual standard, 35 milligrams per cubic meter, and I believe our standard in the United States is only 12 milligrams per cubic meter. Ozone concentrations in 11 capitals also exceeded national thresholds of 160 micrograms per cubic meter, with some cities topping 190 milligrams per cubic meter. So I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article from The Guardian titled China's Emissions of Two Potent Greenhouse Gases Rise 78% in 1 decade. This article reveals that China is the dominant driver of tetrafluoromethane and hexafluoroethane release into the atmosphere globally. Also ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article from MIT News which states that China-based emissions of 3 potent climate warming greenhouse gases spiked in the past decade. 2 studies pinpoint their likely industrial sources and mitigation opportunities. So I ask unanimous consent to resubmit into the record a chart published by the EPA showing emissions by country, showing that China is by far the world's largest emitter of greenhouse gases. And also, I ask unanimous consent to submit into the record an article by BBC News highlighting that China emits more greenhouse gases than the entire developed world combined, emitting approximately 27% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. I don't care to emulate anything that China is doing. Without objection, so ordered.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll see your unanimous request and raise 3 of my own if I could. I'll ask unanimous consent to enter into the record this article from CNN highlighting that the Trump administration is forcing a coal plant to stay open, even though doing so will cost American consumers between $10 and $100 million with no benefit to grid reliability. Also, a UC request to enter the record this EIA report demonstrating that coal is driving the climate crisis, and an NIH public health study showing that coal-fired power plants are responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths over the past 20-plus years. And finally, this article from the Washington Post entitled, In Coal Country, Trump's Cuts to Health Programs Put Miners in Danger.
Can I ask for clarification on the NIH report on the coal
An
plant?
NIH public health study, yeah.
Was that looking at the coal plants that are being closed in the U.S. or the ones that are being built in
It's,
China?
it's a backward look over the last 20-plus years at what has been done to public health. Yeah.
Without objection?